All right, so you advocate for systemic change and how children are educated, emphasizing life and emotional skills. Yes?
Indeed.
Fantastic. So can you share a little bit about how the Happy, Confident Schools, a little about the program, and how traditional systems can really integrate the programs that you are offering?
Sure. Let me first start with my purpose.
Let's do
because,
that.
Obviously, we've heard a lot about purpose in the last 2 days, and it was fascinating. And every time I hear this, I was like, oh, I'm so happy. I found my purpose more than 10 years ago, and I'm on it. It's great. And then someone asked me yesterday, because what's great about Wahasio is great speaker, but also an amazing audience. And so she asked me what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I answered the typical answer, and she goes, no, 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 no. Tell me from the heart, not what you've repeated 100 times. I'm like, wow, okay. And then Ricardo also this morning reconnected me with that, where you know, the flow of energy and where it goes. And I realize how much this purpose is linked to really what breaks my heart. And what really breaks my heart is I lived in Lebanon in the war. And I was so terrified, and I could not understand how people could hate each other so much that they could want to kill themselves, each other. What breaks my heart is that I reproduced my kids some of the horrible things that my parents did to me, like big outbursts of anger, and instead of just being sorry after them, justifying them, because I would be an expert at justifying why I had gotten angry. What breaks my heart is actually that we know all of this 2 days that we spent, we know all of that, and we're still reproducing with the new generation, we still reproduce a lot of the things that we know, and they are science-based. So I made it my purpose really trying to change that. And the systemic change came from twofold. First, I realized what I was doing with my children that was so wrong. So I decided to change. And then when I discovered that there was a science to parenting, I became a top parenting expert, wrote several books. And I really tried to change parents and give them all the tools they need to be more conscious and more connected and more compassionate. But then my 8-year-old, my middle daughter, Yasmin, went through a tough time. She started getting defiant, hitting her sisters. And I asked her at school, I said, oh, do you see any change? She said, oh no, she's still the most positive person in the class. And so I coached her. And in the end, it was a long coaching, and in the end she admitted, I hate myself. And that was obviously, it's hard for any parent to hear this, but when you have 2 parenting coaches as parents, and you know, and you're a very happy person, that was a real big light bulb moment for me. Because I managed to coach her out of it, and then she ran around the house saying, I'm a fallible human being, I'm a fallible human being. And that was marvelous. But what I realized is that in the majority of households, she would have been punished because she was being so difficult to find, and she would have interiorized this not hating herself. And now more than 20% of girls in the UK self-harm at age 13. And so it was the realization that actually children don't have this space, often neither at home or at school, to feel that safety, to express, to understand their feelings, to express them first and to understand them, so they can then self-regulate and really be able to learn the character skill they need to really be, conscious adults and happy adults. So that's where I completely, not completely, basically I've added to the parenting part the whole school program where we teach social emotional learning, so 100 feelings, how to regulate these feelings, how to understand behavior, as well as 10 character skills, such as mindfulness, compassion, we call them the power of mindset, the power of failure, the power of creativity, the power of interoception, feeling our feelings. And so that allows them to have all the tools they need to really face any challenge in life. And so coming back to, unfortunately, the impact was really strong, but schools would tell us, we don't have time for this. Yep. An hour a week, we don't have time. So we converted what was a challenge into an opportunity by using the science of habit, which a lot of people actually, speakers have spoken about. And in the end, we cut it down in 5 to 10 minutes modules that they can use in every day, 5 to 10 minutes. And this had a much bigger impact than in 1 hour a week. So we learned basically that has now enabled the program to grow significantly, and we're launched in the whole world. And so it's finally, unfortunately, because of the crisis, well-being has become a must-have rather than nice to have. But it's work. At least we're hopefully learning the new generation all the tools they need to really thrive.
Thank you for your vulnerability. I think yesterday we heard about not all parents know what they're doing all the time, and so it's great that you are able to feel comfortable in sharing that moment and how that inspired a movement that is benefiting so many students around the world. Nick, you are also inspiring and engaging students from around the world with Lukumi and the foundation. So right here, maybe you can introduce who you have.
Yes, that's,
And
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind the foundation. What was your spark that led you to develop the foundation?
Sure.
And how this influences children and their happiness.
So, and my happiness actually as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the work that I do with the Lukumi Make a Difference Foundation teaches kids to use what makes them happy and then use that to make a difference in the lives of other people through their good deeds so that they can make other people happy. And believe it or not, my life changed 20 years ago when I was in the kitchen with my wife and someone brought us back a box of Lukumi candy from Greece. And we joked around and said, wouldn't that make a cute name for a children's book character? And a year later, our son was born, and I self-published my first book about a little lamb character that goes around the world and does good deeds. And the New York Times got a copy of this self-published book, wrote an article, and it hit number 4 on the children's book bestseller list. And so flash forward, there are now 9 books in the series, and the 3rd book is called Lukumi's Good Deeds, and it was, we were very fortunate, it was narrated by Jennifer Aniston on CD when CDs were still a thing back in 2008. And it just teaches kids to simply to make a difference in the world for things that they're passionate about, things that make them happy. And now, 15 years later, I work with 150,000 children in 30 countries around the world, teaching them to do good deeds. And what we do is I go into schools and we ask kids, we say, how do you want to make a difference in the world? We give them a questionnaire and they check off, I want to help animals, or I want to help the environment, or I want to help the homeless, or make a difference through the arts or through sports, or whatever gets them excited, whatever they're passionate about. And then we do the projects, and the kids have ownership, and in their own voices, they come up with these projects to change the world. And it's especially powerful in underserved communities where children feel like they're powerless. Many times in an underserved community, people are always trying to do things for the kids. They don't think for a second that they can actually make a difference in the world. And when you show them, you know, one girl said she wanted to help the homeless. And I said, why? And she said, because my mother was homeless once. When you show them that they can do that, it's just magic, and they find their purpose.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, behind the scenes in the green room, we were having this conversation of the importance of empowering legacy. And that important, I just want to highlight again, is empowering people to do more, to do the good deeds, because in their hearts, they probably would like to do it, and you've been able to show that it has a fundamental impact on their happiness and well-being. So all we have to do is really like light that spark.
Exactly.
And allow the magic
and it's in
to
every
happen.
child.
And it's in every child. And I think this is an interesting conversation off the heels of the World Happiness Report and what we just heard in the previous panel of the need, right? And being able to really address children in their greatest moments. And empowering them to continue to make a difference. So it's really cool. Nadim, can you tell us a little bit about the Happy Confident Company and how it really prepares children for the complexities of the modern world, right? You talked a little bit about what happened to your daughter, and she's probably a reflection of many other students. Can you maybe share one of the most significant outcomes of this initiative and how you're able to measure the impact that it has?
Sure, absolutely. Impact is very important. I mean, our dream scenario, which we're building, is to have enough surveys and data to show that with well-being and our program in just 5 to 10 minutes a day, we can not only improve children's behavior, inclusivity, kindness, but also their grades. Because we know it's possible and we're working on this. But the first impact has been, we survey teachers, parents, and the students. And the teachers report lots of time saving on behavior management, on interventions in behavior. The students report, their latest surveys were 92% feel safer at school, 90% feel happier at school, 88% feel that they can better manage their feelings, 86% feel they can better help other children manage their feelings. 82% feel kinder with others. So significant, and that's after 2 months of a program of only 5-10 minutes a day. Just imagine how much impact we can have on the world if we could have 5 to 10 minutes a day, which we launched, by the way, a 10 Minutes Matter campaign, backed by a lot of people here actually in Action for Happiness, that really mandates governments in the whole world to put these 10 minutes of mental health as mandatory in all, particularly in primary schools, because we believe in early intervention. Because when we can give the kids these tools before they become teens, then they'll manage these hormones, I mean, all these big changes in a very different way. So that's a big impact. But I also share an anecdote, because what I discovered, I really, I'm sorry to say, but I found it quite hard to change parents, even myself. I mean, I read so many parent books, I did so many trainings, so many healings, and I still sometimes not the best parent. But kids? Oh. So literally the first training I ever did in a school, I've got this 8-year-old boy, and his mother is quite involved, and she asked me a question about him, and so one day she calls me. He says, you know what happened yesterday? Mathieu tells me, I'm getting angry because he was not doing what he was supposed to do, and he says, oh, mommy, you're starting to flip your lid. Maybe you need a bit of PBS. She goes, what's PBS? Just pause, breathe, and smile. and obviously, she ended up laughing. But what's amazing is Mathieu had understood what it was to be in fight, flight, or freeze, and to flip their lid, and the amygdala was taking over, and how it wasn't his mother not loving him, it was just she wasn't actually in a state. So he could keep, instead of going himself into fight, flight, or freeze, he managed to actually be composed enough to tell her, a bit of PBS could help. So just imagine if we can empower kids, give them the sense of agency, because this is the biggest challenge we have. And Rangan spoke about this with Laurie earlier, and a lot of people, is this developing this sense of agency. And you mentioned powerless, this big word for kids who now talk about the wars, because they hear about the wars. They speak about, in the UK, the cost of living crisis. We're talking 7, 8-year-old kids. Climate change, and they feel completely powerless. Their brains are not actually developed enough to make sense of these things. So we need to give them a lot more sense of agency in everything we do, and that's what the program is about. So the impact is significant because of that, and what's great is this systemic, holistic approach where we also have a portal for parents so they understand what's happening at school and how they can implement the 10 powers at home. And so these kind of PBS, all these actually great tools that they can actually use with each other. And it becomes really funny because they know and they speak the same language of feelings, of understanding, of behavior. So hopefully, we can have a huge impact with small changes in atomic habits.
I think so, absolutely. And so, Nick, you also have a global presence. You have students around the world showing up and doing good deeds. You have a good deed bus, which is fantastic. Can you recall maybe one story that stands out that you're like, yes, this is working and this is a really powerful project?
Absolutely. There's so many, but there's one. And as you mentioned, we have a good deed council with schools all around the world. I think there's a map that you have.
Yes, I do.
Where kids once a month work on global good deed projects together from all over the world and learn about each other's countries and cultures. But the one story is the Good Deeds book that Jennifer Aniston narrated, I mentioned, benefits St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And when I was at the hospital when the book was released, I went down to the hospital to read the book. And there was, you got to realize these children are coming from their cancer treatments. Many are hooked up to IVs. Many of them had no hair. But in the sea of those kids, there was one girl, and there's a picture that we brought of Olivia Parks. That's her with our life-size Lukumi character costume. I don't know whether she resonated with me because she was the same age as my daughter at the time, which was about 11 months, or because of that cute daisy headband that she's wearing. That picture was in my office for 3 years, and I always wondered what happened to Olivia. 3 years go by, I'm on Facebook one day at midnight, and that picture pops up, and Olivia's grandmother's writing to me that Olivia was in the hospital and had a tumor in her eye, just underwent treatment to reduce the tumor. And it was very important over those 3 years since we met that Olivia read as many books, so if she did go blind from the procedure, she would always remember the pictures. And that's when her grandmother told me that not a night went by when she didn't read one of the Lukumi books over those 3 years. Olivia now is raising money for St. Jude Children's Hospital for what's passionate to her, for what she says is the hospital that saved her life. And because of kids like her and other kids that donate $1, we've been able to raise $110,000 to open the Lukumi Foundation treatment room at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, sponsored by KISS.
Amazing. An amazing story and the testament to what a spark can do to change the world. And we're going to get kicked off stage, but I have one more question because this is about the vision of the future of happiness. All right, let's say it's 20 years from now. Imagine 20 years, we're in some country somewhere at Wohasu 2044?
2044, wow.
All right, and these programs have been implemented into the world. They're expanding and growing. What does the world look like? You have 1 second and 1 second.
1 second. Kind of world. I mean, literally, it's where in an age of AI, it becomes the biggest foundation. And actually, the schools actually become community hubs where the children learn how to interact. They can learn through hybrid system. They can learn at home. But what's important is in schools, that's what they learn, the community. And so thanks to these new kind of schools, we actually build a new type of community with a kinder world and where children have better managed friendships, better managed relationships, and better manage themselves. And that, I think, will be a significant change in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Lukumi, let's see what's going on with Good Deeds.
So in 20 years from now, I want more schools and more educators to realize the importance of teaching kids to find their purpose and to do good in the world and to make a difference. Because unfortunately, for everyone that buys into it, there's another school that just doesn't have the time for it. So I want, not now, instead of 150,000 kids, I want millions of kids in 20 years. And already I'm seeing, because the first book was written 20 years ago, some of those kids now are in their 20s and they're coming and giving back. So I want this army of kids 20 years from now to continue to change the world one good deed at a time.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you both very much. I want everybody to take out their phone and take a picture of this fantastic slide, because I know that most of you raised your hand to say that you're either a mom, a dad, a grandmother, a grandpa, an educator, someone in the system, a community member who loves and cares about our future generations. And we know that you want to take action. So this is how you can do it. We have a Zoom call on Friday if you're interested in learning more about the Lukumi Foundation. And then if you're interested, if you're a teacher, educator, parent, and you want to learn more about the Happy Confident Company, there's your information and how you can join the movement. Thank you very much, and let's do it.